Hey guys, Sos here doing an introduction to Morogrim on Ascended. So this will be a theoretic explanation of the fight so that people can hopefully understand it a bit easier. So here I will try to illustrate how the fight works. Basically, there will be a bubble on Ascended. It will spawn in the middle of the room between the two rocks. The way it works is that if you deal 1 damage, then it will deal 10 damage in an explosion afterwards. This damage will be split among the monsters that are nearby. So if you have 10 monsters, then it will deal 1 damage to each of the monsters. This is very important to understand when you get a bit later into the fight. The way the bubble will also move, so depending on where it takes damage from, it will calculate its path. And sometimes it's a little bit buggy, but most of the time it works as intended. So if you have 2 melees hitting it from one direction, it will walk the opposite direction. You can use improved hamstring to stop its path, and then you can deal damage to it again. So if you stop it going in this direction, the healers, the melee basically goes on in this direction, then you can try and make it go in the direction you want. So Hammer of Justice, Kidney Shot, improved hamstring is very useful for cancelling out the path so that you can choose a new path for it. Thunderstorm, Blast Wave, knockbacks also work so that you can knock it away in the direction you want it. This does not work when you stun or snare the monster, so it's very important to remember that so that you don't waste your knockback. During the first wave, you will have a healer Murloc on top of the rock, and this Murloc will basically heal all the other Murlocs, so you would want to kill it. The way we deal with this is that we attack the bubble that spawns with wave 1 and kill off the entire wave 1. So we damage the bubble, which kills off all the Murlocs. And then usually we have half HP of the healer left after the explosion of the bubble. And when the next bubble spawns between the waves, then we have all arranged, basically killing the healer Murloc, killing it off. And when they kill it, usually we have about half the bubble left. So you have about half a bubble that when there, with no other targets around, that you can basically put only on the boss. And this way you have about 10 to about 15%, which is a possibility to damage the boss. During wave 2, we have a bubble spawning as well. So you always have a bubble with the wave, spawning with the wave, and then you also have a bubble in between the waves. So on wave 2, you have a warrior ad spawning, and the warrior ad basically reduces the damage the other small Murlocs take by the bubble explosion by 90%. So in order to kill those Murlocs with bubbles, it would take you 3 bubbles. So you would basically kill the bubbles over here. and that is not an option. So the way we handle it is that we have melee with cleave, casters with cleave, just like full AoE damage. The whole wave doesn't have damage reduction to abilities, only to the bubble explosion. So we try to kill the warrior and the wave here with abilities, and then we ignore the bubble. We don't damage it at all, and full ignore. So when we kill the warrior and the whole wave, we have about a full bubble or half a bubble after wave 2 that we can put on the boss. Usually if you don't damage the bubble, it will just stand in position, and it's a lot easier to like pick it up. The melees can like instantly hamstring it and so on to keep it under control. During this bubble, you should be able to get about 10 to 20% of the boss HP. During wave 3, you also have a bubble, and this bubble we want to use on the wave. So you will have a ranged add, and if I make a quick illustration of the whole room, I can try to explain what happens with the ranged add. So there are two entrances. One entrance where you can join from Lurker. And one entrance where you come from Fathom Lodge. So basically, if the ranged ads spawn from the top, then there is basically a clear path to see players. So it will basically just stand up here, it will not move, and everything will be fine. You will basically have the rest of the fight a little bit more difficult with them casting Frostbolt on the raid. The way we handle this is that you have a sort of a build-up in the terrain around this path. So if the rocks are here in the middle of the room, it might make a bit more sense. And then you have the pillars on top of here. So when the ranged ads are up here, you can have your tank basically standing a little bit closer to them, and the healers a little bit further away. This way, the ranged ad only attacks the closest target. So this way it will be possible for the tank to soak up the magic damage and for the healers to basically not get hit by it. On Ascended, you can expect these Frostbolts to do between 5 and 6,000 damage. So they hit really hard and they attack very fast. So you can die very easily from this. So if the range ad spawns from the top, then there will be no issues dealing with them this way. But if it spawns from the bottom and you have a lot of healers behind the rock, for example, then it will simply path over there and it will become an issue. When this happens, it can also be very dangerous for melees that stand behind the rock and line of sight the healers. So this can be a very dangerous part of the fight. Usually we ignore the ranger and then focus on the bubble and then kill the wave. When we do this, because there would be a lot of time investment in killing the ranged ad, so ideally we would not attack the ranged ad, but if the ranged ad basically path over to our group, it will be in range of the bubbles, which can be bad. And it's really easy to fall behind in this fight. So if that happens, usually our group damage the ranged ad and then we actually kill it during the next bubble. So if this is not the case, then we can damage the bubble, only the bubble, and then we can deal about 25 to 40% of the boss HP. So you can see here that, you know, in the best case scenario, we would be able to deal 15, 25, and 40% of the HP of the boss. So that would be 80% of the boss HP in 3 minutes. So it would literally be dead by wave 2 during the second rotation. But yeah, that is not always the case. So sometimes you can manage this in the third wave and sometimes not. And the enrage timer is about 10 minutes, so you have at least 3 rotations, and it should be perfectly fine with wave 1 or 2, or occasionally wave 3 being in your favor. So yeah, that is the entire fight, guys. So I can do a quick recap. I think that would be really good after so much information. So basically you have 3 waves. So in wave 1 you have a bubble, so there's always a bubble with the wave and in between the waves. During wave 1 you have a bubble, and you also have the healer Murloc on top of the rock. What we do here is that we kill the bubble, which kills off the wave, and then it also deals damage to about half the healer. So we want a ranged DPS to finish off the healer as quickly as possible. That might not always be that fast, because you have to kill the rising bubbles, which have about 50,000 HP. So just make sure that you always kill the rising bubbles. The rising bubbles target 1 player in 10 man, and happens with every single bubble. There will be a rising bubble as well, trying to suffocate one of the players in the group. So yeah, we have half the healer left. So we want the range DPS to finish that off, and then usually we have about half the bubble left when they help us destroy it after the healer, and this will deal about 10 to 15% of the boss HP. During wave 2 we will have a warrior, and if you have a really good cleave in the composition of your raid group, then you would be able to kill off the warrior and the melee ads or the small murlocs when this comes. Then you would be able to have about 80%, 100%, 50% of the bubble up, and yeah, so we kill off the warrior, we ignore the bubble, and we kill off the wave with abilities. So the warrior and the wave with abilities. The bubble that comes afterwards, we like to just put on the boss. So it would be able to get around 15 to 20%, 25% of the boss HP. During wave 3, we have a bubble as well, and we also have a ranged ad. So depending on where the ad spawns and how it behaves, we usually kill the bubble as fast as possible to kill off the wave. And then we also kill the ranged ad if it gets into our melee range or into like our explode radius. But if it's far out in the open and hitting a tank, then there is no problem just having it there for the remainder of the fight. In those situations, we would have the full bubble on the boss and be able to deal between 25 and 40% of its health. Yeah, so that's the whole fight, guys, from theory, and there might be a little bit hard to digest for everyone, but this is definitely how the fight works. There might be a few tweaks here and there depending on your composition that you could utilize. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and good luck in the future with the boss encounter.